Welcome to the Eclectic Gamers Podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 21st. This is our very special episode 49, and I'm Tony.
And I'm Dennis, and we're joined here with Nick, the Nick, from Nick's North American Pinball Tour. I hope I said the entire tour's name correctly, Nick.
Is it? I didn't even hear. I'm sorry. I was looking at the list of EMs that we're going to talk about.
Well, that's really why we're here. But
yes.
I figured normally we start with our introductions, and I thought this would be a good segment. I have nothing new to report because we had a podcast 2 days ago.
Yeah, I haven't done anything.
But
I worked.
You might have some information to tell us about just sort of what you've been doing going around with EMs, at least on the most recent leg of your tour.
Yes, of course the huge 15,000 mile loop was completed in the middle end of July. But I'm still doing little smaller loops to areas like Chicago, most recently out to Roanoke, and then Virginia, and then now I'm back in Kansas City. And this isn't really a part of. I'm not fixing any games on this particular run. I was dropping off a game to a collector, picking up another, doing little playfield swaps, that kind of stuff. This is just a maintenance run, but I'm going to be doing little runs here and there, and but there will be a announcement that will be made in late March.
During this episode.
Yeah.
No.
After TPF. Okay. I do have a plan in the works that's it's very interesting, and
I like how your idea of just short little trips include things like Roanoke, Virginia.
Yeah, that's
because that's right outside the door. I walk there every day. That's how I do it.
Well, Texans drive a lot, and like my Scottish friend said, his mom was trying to buy a ticket to Texas, and she's like, "Oh, you can just book me anywhere in Texas." He's like, "No, you can drive all day and be in the same state." No, it's not going to work. So, it's fine. 2,000 miles is nothing compared to 15. So, I've been broken in pinball driving.
Well, we're here to talk about what is commonly referred to as EM pinball, or what's, for those not familiar with the jargon, that'd be electromechanical. So pre-electronic, post-electric. The EM era is pretty broad, and I know you don't want to go all the way back to the pre-war era, pre-flipper era, or perhaps even the wood rail era. So in terms of interest, just what EM era is of interest to you? What do you think is the most exciting that was coming out of EM?
Well, I think we'll keep it casual while we're all here. Wood rails and pre-war machines are a lot of fun. They're really interesting. They have a lot of history to them. But I think for what most people kind of want to, I think we should do like a more high-level approach in what people are most likely going to have and play and kind of relate to, and that's probably right around the 1960 and up, right after the wood rails, up until the transition point in solid state. So we'll just kind of keep it there and focus on the three big manufacturers, Gottlieb, Bally, and Williams. And
let's go ahead and start off then by what distinguishes these companies. Obviously, they're different companies, but what sets them apart? And I know we'll explore this in more depth later, but when I've met a lot of people who are really big into EMs, you possibly as an exception, they have broadly could be described as Gottlieb fanboys and girls, but it's mostly boys and it's mostly Gottlieb. And so I think that might be a good manufacturer to sort of start with, but obviously they had different designers. Each company usually had a couple main ones, it seems, but what distinguishes all these companies apart from one another? And I think you might be better to answer this than someone like me, beyond the fact that you have more knowledge in EMs in general, but also that from working on them, some of the mechanical differences behind the playfield that we're in.
Well, we'll just have to make our way through the weeds on this one. Oh my gosh, there's so much to consider. Gottlieb is, of course, the most popular because they were dominant, right up until Bally's, I'd say, Wizard in 1975 was the game that Bally said, we'll be taking over now. Thank you very much. It was a nice run. But before then, Gottlieb was completely dominant and in the EM era. So Gottlieb, let's see, to categorize, this is going to invite probably some hate mail. Gottlieb,
Eclectic Gamers Podcast at gmail.com. All hate mail will be directed to Tony.
Yep, that's my job. I get the hate.
So, see, Gottlieb, I like to classify. Gottlieb is really, I'd say, their primary focus was, artwork and just finesse. They're the big G, the Gottlieb. It's almost like it can almost be glamour, G for glamour. The Gottlieb glamour, that's what kind of pulls you in. Their artwork was first rate. They had this beautiful back box animation. The playfield artwork was fantastic. Their chimes were the most melodious. They had the tune chime boxes that they sound the most harmonic, pretty. Their mechs are very silky. The flippers are just very. They just have a refined feel to them. Everything about it is just a pleasure to interact with. Most people who are EM fans, I'd say maybe in their early 50s and up, when they were in the arcades, that Gottlieb was the most popular manufacturer. So there's some nostalgia there as well.
Right. And we see that in the solid state era as a big driving force behind what some people think of and still think of as maybe the best manufacturer. And we won't go into that in this episode. But so far, I don't think you're going to generate a lot of hate mail because everything you've said about Gottlieb was pretty praiseworthy.
Oh, sure.
Good art, good sound. You even threw the mechs a bone, which I wasn't sure you would or wouldn't.
Well, they do. Well, that's the thing. Now, as far as the player's perspective is concerned, the mechs are very refined and silky and wonderful. Under the hood, they're, of the big three, probably the most fussy, I'd have to say, to deal with. They require an extra amount of finessing and work, and each manufacturer had their strengths and weaknesses, but of the big three, Gottlieb is the, let's relate it to 80s cars. If you were a kid in the 80s, you bought a Bally Williams, then you probably bought like a Mustang. You probably had a car like that. But if you bought a Gottlieb, you'd be more of an Alfa Romeo, Fiat kind of, cool car, but a little more time working on them to get them.
Okay. What would you highlight with regarding Williams, which I think is often the least talked about of the EMs, at least in my experience.
Yeah, it's a shame because Williams EMs are really fantastic. They made a lot of really terrific games, especially right towards the end of the EM era. They had some just really terrific multiplayers and just, but with Williams, the artwork is probably the weakest of them, and also their sound is the weakest. Their little clanky chimes, have that real, clonkety sound.
When I had Skylab, its chimes were not a high point,
right?
Unfortunately,
that's kind of the sad thing, because chimes are one of the things that really still make EMs kind of different and really pop. And one of the things I really enjoy, it's like when we go to TPF, when you get up with a whole bunch of games with the chimes going at the same time, that gives you the kind of feel more than modern pinballs do when you're playing. As hey, there's a whole bunch of pinball machines here. Those chimes, the chimes kind of make it all. It gives you the aura and the kind of worldly feel of it.
I think, Tony, that's a really good point, because I would say that in all of pinball, that audio is the most important of the five senses, So maybe it's four senses because, if a coil burns, then you can smell, But anyway. But yeah, of
still
the three...
tasting the pinball.
Exactly. But of the three senses, I think sound is the most important because it rattles around in your imagination, and there's just some sort of physical connection that it makes between your brain and your body. And
I think of the 70s era Williams do seem to be known, at least, maybe because the production numbers were higher, but I'm just thinking of a lot of people are familiar with things like Space Mission, Grand Prix, Spanish Eyes, maybe more for its horrid artwork than anything else, but so it did start to get some attention. But I've always had a sense, Nick, that you're more of a Bally fan.
Well, actually, I like all three, and really, here's the which is better, I like all three. In fact, I like even Sonic, and
I dared not ask which is better.
Right,
we'll figure it out by your tone.
Thank you. There's no definitive better. There's just better things about different things, elements. But yeah, if I had to pick one sort of forget it. I'm not even going to answer that. I'm just going to say I like different things with the companies. Bally, though, is probably my favorite just because if I had to pick one pinball company for all time, both EM and solid state era, it would just be Bally, because I thought they have just the most games that I like. But it's for me, it's Bally Williams are kind of the up there, and then Gottlieb is third, I think, to those two. For me personally, and I'm sorry, the fans really, really like them. I know they're really cool. I love my 2001. It's a terrific game. And I do have some Gottliebs I really like. But in general, if you line them all up, you'll find that the Gottliebs do have a quaintness about them that, to me, is, in this modern age, doesn't quite keep up as well as the other two.
I won't be sending in hate mail because I'm the one who has to read it. But what I'd like to explore actually is because I think you've led into it really well, is what do you think of as the broadly speaking, the play styles that EM games come in, the flavors? I think those of us, we mostly talk solid state, as most of the podcasts that cover pinball do. And in there are generally two types of the point and shoot games, and then the flow games. And that's what everyone talks about nowadays. It's like, oh, this is a flow. And flow is always the big focus now. But there are a few that are like, oh yeah, point and shoot. I like those. That's what Street Fighter 2 is. For the three people who like Street Fighter 2, the pinball machine, it's about, oh, well, it's a shooter's game. But EMs, they were more experimental, I would say, in their layouts overall. I mean, a lot of that was probably just people hadn't figured out just exactly what felt great. Anyway, that's my lead in, but what would you say are broadly speaking are the play styles that we see in this sort of 60s and beyond of EM?
Well, maybe that is similar to the solid states. It's kind of a three-legged table. You've got your nudge, lane chasing kind of, so it's like if you're chasing lanes and it's a nudgy kind of game, that's one style. Another style is the target shooters. I guess you can call it point and shoot. I call them target shooters. And the third is circular flow, and I guess that's also flow, games. Mm-hmm. So there's three, but
maybe someday there'll be square flow, but I haven't seen it yet.
But there's certainly no nudging in the solid state kind of games. I mean, maybe to save your ball, but certainly
not like a play style.
Not as a primary survival thing. Not really.
That's good because I don't like it.
Yeah, it's this, and that's a lot of Gottlieb games are lane chasers. They're very much like rollovers, roll over the lanes, collect them all. There's a certain OCD characteristic to a lot of these older Gottliebs, where the point isn't so much to get a high score, but to kind of light up all of the elements, all the cards, or all the pool balls, or all the things. Then you can earn specials, and that's done usually by like rolling over targets or lanes or so forth, and that involves a lot of nudging. So it's sort of the evolution of like the Bagatelle and bingo games that are all nudging, and then it gets into more like pinball rules.
So with what style do you favor?
So of the three, I mean, I'm definitely a circular flow kind of person. Target shooting games, I'm there and back. That kind of V formation is. I kind of like more circular side-to-side movement all around the table, this big figure eight kind of patterns. More your Bally Williams will have that, and I do like that. Although 2001 is my favorite wedge head, and that has terrific flow all the way across this 20 drop targets, 2 pops, slings at the top, and it's just got this fantastic movement to it. And it's probably why, although we'll get into the relevance of IPDB ratings and Pinside ratings, it is currently number 1, so maybe there's some truth to that.
It's the drop targets. Everybody loves drop targets. They're just satisfying.
Yes.
I do like some of the, and pool was often a common theme for, which it makes sense because of the nature of that game in and of itself, to play billiards pool, not the swimming pool themed pinball machines, of which there are some, but
quite a few. Yeah.
But broadly speaking, I concur. I like the ball to keep moving. I like watching it travel. The more places it gets to go around the playfield, the better for me. That's the element of pinball I've always liked. So that, occasionally I like a good shooter's game especially with drops. A good set of drops is a lot of fun. It wouldn't be what I would predominantly like. Some of the things like your restored Freedom prototype that you have, I think is a fun flow game.
Well, even
if some people say you can't hit the spinners, some say that is not possible, but it is.
It is
possible. It is quite possible. I think the frustration maybe with just that cradling the ball requires a little different skill set than normal to line up that shot, and that's what's good about the prototype is it teaches you new flipper skills.
And we see that we've seen that, and so again, not to though we can touch on it again at the end because the System 11 tournament we just wrapped up the last episode was your idea. That is why we did it. People might think you've never seen a solid state game, but you've played a couple.
Oh, of course. Yes, I've got that.
But I've always found, I was really surprised how far I got in the tournament because it was in the Final Four, but Space Station.
Yeah.
The thing about Space Station that some people really like and some people hate is where those slings are located. Anyway, but Freedom, A+. That was our first.
We fell in love
TPF.
with that at our first TPF.
That's why Nick
that's
was
kind of
our
where
first
we
interview.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the middle pop Freedom is, I don't know where I got the statistic that there's only 100 of them out there. I read it somewhere and then I forgot the link to it, and I don't know. But there's certainly not very many. But if you do see one, whatever condition it's in, for heaven's sake, buy it and call me and just sell it to me because.
But you already have one.
I know, but
what will you do with two?
I can restore it and people want
it.
We'll
be all over it.
I got folks who really want one, but anyway.
It's like mine. I'm not letting this one go. You bring me another one, I'll do it for you, but I'm not letting this one go.
Well, I'll keep my eyes out, but I have not seen one up yet.
Well, there's an option to convert an existing Freedom over to that, and that's later in the pipeline if I've got time to do it.
I actually put Freedom and the prototype into my watch list. And I've never seen anything. I've seen seen
regular Freedoms.
Seen regular Freedoms come up,
especially in solid state.
Yeah, but nothing else.
Well, they made over 5,000 of the standard Freedoms. So,
which fine. Is still.
I might have one and not even know.
I'm sure it's still a fine game, but I can't see how it could possibly have quite the same fun and quite the same play. That middle pop just is something special.
Yeah, it's Norm Clark's finest kind of evolution of the middle pop format. It's like a different conversation right there. But by taking that away, you're really just removing his signature on it and that whole figure eight thing. So it does, it's like
we can go ahead because you brought it up, and this is an excellent time to transition into the rating systems.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And there are two different rating systems. I think most of our listeners are familiar with Pinside, but I want to hit on that one second because I think IPDB is in a way the more interesting, only because it's so, I want to say anachronistic, but you might have a different take on it. But I pulled these yesterday. So these are as of November 20th, 2017, for those going back and listening. Here is the IPD list of the top 10 EM machines. Starting at number 1, which was, as Nick already mentioned, 2001.
I think that deserves to be 2001.
This is a Gottlieb 1971. Yeah. Number 2 is a game Tony and I are very familiar with, as is probably just about anyone who's ever played an EM. That would be Fireball.
I love that.
Bally 72.
And here's the thing about Bally Fireball is, it is the Pac-Man of EM pinball. It is Pac-Man is the symbol for video games in general. Well, Fireball is the symbol for EM pinball in general. That is the art and the gameplay that people remember the most because they made so many of them. The home version, they had Fireball Classic, they have Fireball 2, they got the that Fireball with the spinning disc, and there's just that's made an impression more than any other game. So it's the most recognizable for sure.
It's probably, I think, the most flashy in the sense that they stuck in just about every mech they could come up with. I guess it was featured in Playboy at the time when it came out, which got it a lot of layman exposure that normally it'd just be in an arcade. Yeah. Thank you, Tony. So anyway, Fireball, number 2. Number 3, I have no familiarity with this. A game called Flying Turns, Midway, 1964.
Okay, so Flying Turns. Flying Turns is a pretty cool game. It's actually a 2-player game, and it's a pinball, but it doesn't have pop bumpers. It's like kind of it's a smaller scale target shooting kind of game, and as you earn laps and so forth, there are these 2 little toy cars in the back box. It has this little shoebox, little cinema thing in the back box there. And the cars race each other. So as you make progress on the pinball machine, little cars kind of lap one another in the back box. And it's just really good looking. And it's actually, you think a game like this, a lot of these little horse race kind of games and things in the little back box are kind of novelty-ish, but this one's actually really fun. It's got a good layout. It's a lot of fun for 2 people to play. So that kind of deserves its place up there.
Game number 4.
Now we're getting into trouble. Now we go off the rails.
This would be Sweethearts. Gottlieb 63. It's a Wayne Nyans. I saying his last name right?
I get Nines. Yeah, I believe
Nines.
so. Yeah.
Only one of these designers, I think, who's still alive, incidentally.
Yes. And he's made some great games, like Marble Queens, Goodwood Rail, a bunch of games. He's done a really fantastic.
Well, he's probably listening, so why don't you say why you don't like this one?
Well, Sweethearts was number 1 on the IPDB a couple of months ago.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
and it got bumped off. And I thought that was an utter travesty because I personally absolutely cannot stand Sweethearts. I'm sorry, but if you look at the layout, and I can just pull it, I don't know if you can pull it up in your, I'll pull it up on mine, but I don't even need to do that. So Sweethearts is a game where, actually Sweethearts is my example for the hypocrisy of fans of Gottlieb, because Gottlieb fans who love Sweethearts, and they most often do, hate, and they love to dog on El Toro. El Toro is...
El Boro?
Yeah, everybody picks on poor El Toro because they're like, it's 2 lanes of bagatelle at the top and you don't ever get the ball. And I'm like, okay, Sweethearts is same thing. You plunge the ball and it goes through 1 lane. And then it goes through another lane. And then when you finally get the ball, your play area is about the size of a piece of toast. And you can either hit the gobble hole at the top or go down the drains on the side, which are huge. The end. So it's like play bagatelle and drain. Sweethearts, the game for you. I'm like, I don't get it.
So you probably have it a little bit lower even than 4. Just a little bit.
It would be there's so many Gottlieb games that have that play mechanic where it's like collect the whole set. Why? So you can earn a special. But who cares? Some people care about that. Okay, that's going to be a fight right there. That's going to be a fight. But
that's what we want.
Yeah, here you go.
Fight. We need the drama.
Playing for specials in the home or tournament environment is. Here's why I came to that conclusion that it just doesn't really add much to the gameplay. Okay, nostalgia is one thing, but okay, I bought Flip a Card. It's a really neat asymmetrical layout. It has this nice fan of shots. The risk reward is there. It's got, you can flow, hit it right back up to the top, to the lanes. It's like, this is a really good geometry. So I bought the game. This is early on in my, restoring, hobby. And I put in my due diligence, 40 hours, I rebuilt the thing and, riveted new target faces on and polished all the plastics and just did everything, all my little fixes. And then I realized, wait a minute. All of the targets are worth 50 points, whether they're lit or not. And if you complete the whole set, nothing happens except the opportunity to earn a special, which is not going to help you if you're competing in a tournament or trying to hit a high score or whatever. So really, the only way to correctly play this game is to not play the game and just hit the ball back up to the top over and over again because all the lanes are worth either 100 or 300 points. That is how to win that game. Catch the ball, send it back up to the top over and over, and that's it. And I'm like, well, this is just stupid. So, how many other Gottlieb games are like that where you're just sort of, and then I was doing my homework and I'm like, a ton of them are like this. So in hindsight, what I should have done is hacked the gameplay so that when you complete the set of cards, you get like 2,000 points. You get a bonus or something because those are the risky shots. So anyway, so Sweethearts is one of those games. You complete all the cards and that's supposed to be,
Number 5, not Flip a Card, but Pop a Card. Gottlieb 72.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I think it's better than Drop a Card, which is the drops. I don't think the drops reset after you get them all.
They did a lot to cards.
Drop a card, flip a card, pop a card, top a card.
Oh, there's a whole lot of card games in the Gottlieb lineup.
Number 6 is another Gottlieb, Abracadabra.
Now, interesting thing about Abracadabra, if you can click on that, let me see, Jeff Brenner.
Mm-hmm.
And he only designed 3 layouts for Gottlieb. Only 3.
Okay.
But all 3 of them were like absolutely beloved and had even other kind of iterations made honoring them onwards. So Abracadabra was one of those games. As you know, Abracadabra inspired games like Pioneer, where it had those same lower, 2 angle drop targets and the no slings below. And like Quick Draw, Fast Draw also has the 2 angle drop targets and the no slings below. So Abra kind of influenced those 2, but So Ebra's a really well-liked game,
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe I've played this. I think one of our area collectors owns it. Number 7 is Crosstown.
Yes, that is the replay version of the Flipper Fair layout. Flipper Fair is the first game to have that layout with the wide gap between the flippers, and it was originally designed as an add-a-ball, and I think it actually kind of needs to be an add-a-ball. The geometry is so difficult that flipper gap kind of needs that risk-reward shot to earn an extra ball, in my opinion.
Number 8 is Target Pool. I believe that one is in Pinball Arcade.
Yep, that's what I call that's kind of the baby 2001. Yeah, it's kind of a similar.
And I like that layout.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Number 9, Card Whiz.
Now here's where I just have to jump off the. I don't like. I just don't care for that stair step drop target alignment, whatever that drop target where it's kind of diagonal like that. I just don't really care for like Atlantis. I don't really like the shot, the way it works. I don't like Card Whiz. I don't like Sky Jump. It's just something about that kind of. You sacrifice a lot of the play field to make that work, and I don't think there's quite enough action for me. But it's popular, so who cares? One person's opinion.
And rounding out the top 10 on IPDB was Fast Draw.
Yep, and Fast Draw is very popular, and that's one that I just need to get a little more familiar with.
Doing what I do, because I've only, I think, played half of these games. But some noteworthy things. This top 10, 8 of these are Gottlieb's, and 6 of those 8 were designed by Ed Krinsky. And we had 1 Bally and the 1 Midway with the little race cars, and no Williams.
In fact, if we scroll down, the only Williams that pops up is Lady Luck at number 14, which I wouldn't put above dozens of Williams before we even. So, like Space Mission's better than that.
Right.
Right. So, Aztec.
Now, I think, so let's go ahead and let's transition over to the Pinside top 10. And it will be interesting to talk about the analytics of that once we get through them. But I will note up front, Pinside's top 10, not a single one is on that IPDB top 10.
No
they
kidding.
Are entirely different.
Wow.
Entirely
That's
different.
crazy.
That's why this was going to be good.
All right.
So number 1, according to Pinside, is the Williams 1964 hit Heat Wave.
That's a good one, though. That is a good one. Heat Wave's got great artwork. But number 1 out of
it's
everything?
Number 1.
I don't know
number
about
1, Nick.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Number 2, same designer, which Steve Kordek, who I'm familiar with because I own 2 Kordek games. Of course, the Everywhere You Trip Over Skylab, but I also had 3 Coins, which was one of the 60s designs, not one of his better ones, I might add. Teacher's Pet is number 2.
Woohoo! Teacher's Pet.
Well, that one didn't grab me in terms of geometry. It does seem like a kind of collect all the letters, kind of completionist game like that. I had one, but I sold it.
Number 3, another Williams game, OXO.
Norm Clark.
Yep.
All right, Norm Clark puts us down. He's my favorite designer, and he's the Walt Disney of EM designers. He's the one who just threw in all kinds of whimsical, crazy, innovative, new stuff. Just tried everything. He's just completely unpredictable. And OXO, there's one. He has the projection lights underneath to change the X's and O's, and you have to make the shots to. I mean, you think tic-tac-toe is not very exciting. There are some tic-tac-toe themed pinball machines that came earlier, like the Egghead and Squarehead. I think both are tic-tac-toe games, and there are a couple of others, wood rails.
I've not played this.
OXO is actually it's very fast, very shot oriented, but also has flow, and the effects are kind of neat. The way the lights change, and that one's cool. Yeah, it's a pretty neat game.
So basically, what it's looking like here is literally anything can be an EM theme. I mean, tic-tac-toe, teachers, anything. And anything could be an EM theme and be absolutely perfectly acceptable and work.
Could be.
It was a world pre-license. And maybe pre-taste in some cases.
Yeah.
Some.
I mean, well, how about marbles? Like just playing marbles. Marble Queen. There you go. This one.
So.
I mean, probably some girl sitting on a yacht, and it's called Sody Pop. She's just sipping or a phosphate. Yeah. Yeah.
And there are a lot of things like fairy tales and stuff I've seen.
Yeah.
Well.
Oh, yeah. A lot of, Wonderland, Alice in Wonderland, they had that.
Like, I know, like Mayfair, which is basically My Fair Lady kind of look thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they aped movies of the day. It was kind of interesting.
Without actually doing it in such a
Costello.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, number 5, let's see. Yeah, another Williams. No, I'm sorry. I need to do number 4. I was skipping that. That's not a Williams. It's a Gottlieb. Snow Queen.
Yeah, that's a liked one. I have a Snow Derby. I got the one we repainted for the TPF 2016 Best 70s EM. Very popular game. Got a lot of players. And, of course, we did the cabinet in blue instead of white. And we used white webbing with lacquer instead of black webbing. So it'd be a lot more like snow. And it's kind of, for some people it's blasphemous. But the original,
Yeah, it sounds probably morally wrong.
Yes, but it looks amazing. It looks so cool.
That's what every mad scientist says when their abomination comes. That's amazing.
It needed to be repainted anyway.
Oh, okay.
So it had to be repainted anyway. It was in terrible shape, and the original design is kind of like this tequila sunrise look, and you're like, well, that's not very snowy. It doesn't even look. We just didn't want to redo it like that. It just didn't. I didn't want. So anyway. Whatever, but yeah, fun game.
Okay.
Fun game.
All right, well, it sits in at number 4 on Pinside.
I think I've actually played either Snow Derby or.
I think I played
one
Snow
of them.
Derby.
I played one of them because that's the one with the girls on the snow machine.
Yeah,
back class. I've seen. Yeah, I know. I've played that machine.
Number 5 is a Williams game, and that's Blast Off.
That's a good one, actually, and that's the Addaball, and that's a pretty neat game. Yeah, I like that one.
Another Clark game, so of course you did.
Is it? Norm Clark to Blast Off?
That's what I have written. I may have jotted it down wrong, but my notes are impeccable.
I should know this because, actually it is his because he did Apollo and that's the same one. It's just the Addaball version. Okay, so there you go. There's an innovative game. Launch the rocket, get the thing, has the bagatelle in the back box. He's just the one who's added all of this whimsical stuff. Anyway, okay.
All right, number 6. This one's going to be controversial for you, Nick. So I'm warning you up front.
Do we have any Gottlieb so far except
everybody?
Only Snow Queen so far.
Okay.
Everything else has been Williams so far.
Wow, this is
not Williams, and this is not Gottlieb.
Okay.
This is Whoa Nelly Big Juicy Melons.
That is not an EM.
That is what I thought, but it is in there on the list at number 6. Whiz-Bang Pinball 2012 version.
Yeah, that can't be there. That's not an EM.
Look,
not
it was there, and I was following the rules of the segment as laid out, which was as of November 20th, 2017. Pinside says that is the number 6.
Okay, we're just going to give him a mulligan and move on. So no, it's not EM.
Mulligan.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving past that one, then we will be back to Gottlieb, and it will be their 1971 game Sheriff.
Okay, so it's the 4-player version of Lawman, which is it's like Atlantis, except it has the ball gate.
So you hate it because of the stair step.
Well, I don't
drops.
hate it. It just doesn't.
You highly dislike it in a way that could be described as hate.
I see why it's popular. I got lots of friends who like it. And that's great. I don't think it's terrible.
The faint phrase is so faint. It's just deliciously faint.
It does take a long time for that bonus to count down. It's like going ka-donk chink, ka-donk, ka-donk chink, ka-donk, ka-donk chink. You're just waiting all day for that. Anyway.
Number 8, Dancing Lady.
That's kind of like King of Diamonds, I think. Isn't that the one that's got that roto target that's kind of in the middle there?
I actually don't know Dancing Lady.
I'm not sure. I might be confusing. I think that's the one.
I've got the playfield called up here.
Yeah, I think it's got really nice artwork.
Yeah, it's got a roto target right
Yeah,
in the
that's a
middle.
pretty neat one. I haven't played it, though. So I think it looks great.
Number 9 is a Bally game, Skyrocket.
Oh, well, I love Skyrocket, and that's number 4 on my personal list, and I have one. And it will be at TPF 2018.
That one, incidentally, is the only of all the games on either list Harry Williams design.
Are you serious? Harry Williams designed Skyrocket.
At least as per my notes. Which, as we've already proven,
how can that be? That's a Bally.
With it being a Bally, I was confused as well because I thought, well, I know he did stuff for Stern Electronics after doing stuff for Williams. I didn't pull up any of the specific details. You might want to take a look on your system to see if there's any additional information because this was pulled from the details on Pinside, not IPDB. So they could also have something in error. After all, they did say, "Whoa, Nelly" is an EM.
Well, there is. Let's see here. Designed by Harry Williams. Wow. Well, they say so as well on IPDB. Well,
okay. Well, the notes continue to hold their truth.
It's a solid design. I mean, it's the most beautiful EM in terms of you get the best light show of any EM with that game. Just the way it selects the bonus points, it looks like a little fireworks show is going off in your game. So I will have a newly clear-coated and beautified version. So come see it.
Well, and then number 10, this might help alleviate some of the issue here with Wonelli, because number 10 at Pinside is a tie. So there are actually two games at number 10. One is, they're both Gottliebs. One is from the 65, and it's Cowpoke. And the other is from 77, and that's Centigrade 37.
I see. Both very popular, graphically impressive games.
With such a nice
mechanical finesse, silky.
Yes, exactly. Beautiful backglass. Both of them have backglass animation, actually. It's kind of ironic they both do. But neither one is my particular cup of tea. But that's cool. Who cares? I love the artwork on Cowpoke. I think it's just lovely kicking the cowboy thing, and it's great. But kind of a similar problem. Your gameplay is very small. It's like once you get the ball, it's kind of all down there, and you just kind of hit the little road target. And of course, Centigrade 37. Here's where we can talk about Centigrade. So, Centigrade, it's just got to be all about the theme with that game.
Tell me about the waterfalls, George. Tell me about the waterfalls.
Well, the little bagatelle kind of thing.
Yes, that takes up half the. Well, all right. I mean, I'm rounding that way too high. It's more like a third of the entire right-hand side is consumed by this.
Well, that's Jeff Brenner's innovation. Okay. They came with Atlantis. You know, Atlantis introduced the little side bagatelle. Did Atlantis
ruin EM? Because that seems to be the theme of this discussion.
Hell no.
I'm looking for the silver thread that links it all.
Okay, well, here's the 4 games with the little side bagatelle. Okay, it's Atlantis, Top Score or 300, which is the bowling pin game, Sheriff Lawman, which is that one, and Centigrade 37. So of them, that's a good question. How would you rank those 4? I like Top Score 300 the most out of those. It's got that cute back box thing. It's got a spinner. It's fast. It's just cool. Then I'd probably put Atlantis below that. And then probably Lawman Sheriff. And I guess last would be Centigrade 37. I just don't... Mm-hmm. I think the drop targets aren't as fun as having a whole rack. And yet there's no spinner like 300 has to score things. So it's just not as much going on in terms of layout and geometry. Cool artwork, sure, cool artwork, but the soul of an EM is its geometry. That is kind of what
I do agree. I do agree with that. I also think it's interesting that of those 4 categories of games there that you described following this feature, your 2 least favorite are the 2 that are in the top 10 on Pinside.
Yeah.
The Sheriff Lawman represented there.
Yep.
And then, though they did have Centigrade 37 beneath that, so at least that is an agreement with you, broadly speaking. So you both recall when we got through doing the IPDB list, I noted that those were 8 Gottlieb machines, and then we had the 1 Bally and 1 Midway. And most of those Gottliebs were Krinsky designs. In this case, 4 of the top 10 are Williams. And that's split. 2 are Kordek and 2 are Clark. And then we have 4 Gottliebs. 3 are Krinsky. 1 is Wayne Nines. And then we still have 1 Bally. And then we have Wonelli.
Well, if you throw out Wonelli and you elevate the 2.
No, we do. We can't. So the one thing of consistency is that there's only 1 Bally in either of these 2 top 10 lists. And I wondered what your thoughts were on that, because when Wizard came out, you still had almost a decade worth of stuff.
A decade worth of stuff.
Stuff being EMs.
Oh, not really, because...
I thought it was 71, it was 75, so no, you don't. You have that was right towards the end.
Yeah, Bally got out of EMs quick after Wizard. I mean, they didn't last long at all. In fact, it looks like their phase-out year was...
I was way off.
Yeah, they phased them out even by 77, they only made 155 Evel Knievels and 170 Mataharis. And then they used Kickoff to use the last of their parts. There was like 1,600 of those just to run them out. But By 77, Bally was already running for the way ahead of the
it's
game.
just it's still weird to me to hear the numbers difference when you're talking about production runs of a modern pinball machine being 200 games, 300 games. It's like, yeah, we built 14,000 of this game and we put out 8 games this year minimum.
Well, that's been nice when none of those arcades had any video games to take up space for them.
Yeah.
I always thought it was really interesting that Gottlieb was so slow to adapt away from EM, though I understand the logic behind. I understand their logic, but that I would say they were probably the most conservative company of them all.
Oh,
despite,
by far,
despite what innovations they're going to be known for, the flipper. But those were like one-offs. And France still wanted EMs, is my understanding, and that was their big export market.
Oh.
And so France kept saying, "Well, no, we still want the EMs." And so Gottlieb's like, "Well, we're just going to keep building EMs because the French are a huge market share for us, and they're not asking for solid state until they did."
And then they were too late. They were too
And
far
they
behind the
outsourced their
ball.
system one, and then we go into things that are
Right.
beyond the scope of this particular episode. Fascinating. I love the fall of Gottlieb. I think it's incredible. It's worthy of a book.
Yeah, but you can't compare the fall of Gottlieb without looking at also the rise of Bally, because
Sure.
they both are hand in hand. I mean, Bally just in '75 was just, I mean, they hired Norm Clark.
Mm-hmm.
They got him from Williams, and he became the head of the pinball design department at Bally right when they were taking over. He was
And then you get to have a whole chapter about the fall of Bally because it crashed and burned before Gottlieb did.
That's right. By '82, they were already like, "Oh my God, what are we going to do?" Let's go on wild swings everywhere. Anyway, we can talk about that later. So,
sure.
But yes.
Well, we covered all the main categories I had for us to hit on. So I want to turn the floor over to you, Nick.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, let's see. So we just covered why we looked at IPDB and we looked at Pinside ratings, and they're really not consistent at all. And you just have to realize that the rating systems currently are completely subjective. That while there may be a shred of truth, at least in terms of weeding out the truly awful games from the games that are popular and people like, in terms of an absolute scale, meaningless. Utterly meaningless. Do not pay any attention to what something is ranked on any EM list, because there are far too many. We don't have the same amount of experience of people playing different manufacturers and so forth. And what we do see is a huge majority of Gottlieb fans who are pumping the ratings for the games that they like the most because they were the most popular. And people who grew up playing those games in the arcade. I'm technically too young to be an EM fan because when I was an arcade kid, it was all like Xenon and Space Invaders and video games and solid states. I didn't see any EMs in the arcade. I mean, I missed it by a year or two, but they cleared those things out almost immediately when solid state hit. So I just missed it. So I'm not beholden to any manufacturer, whether it's Gottlieb, Bally. I just care about the best game, So, but just before me, folks who are say in their 50s, mid 50s and up, they are going to almost always favor Gottlieb. So I think the ratings will always be kind of skewed Gottlieb for that reason. Play a lot of EMs. You go to like the PPM Expo, or you go to a place that has a lot of EMs, and you're a newbie, or you're like just getting into pinball. Then I think you could probably get a better score from those people in terms of sort of objective rating, because nostalgia is not a part of it, and so they're going to be just looking at the games. So I think that's being a Gottlieb guy, nothing wrong with that at all. But
yeah, what's your theory behind why, at least going to the top 10s, is Pinside so different? You go from an IPDB, which is so overwhelmingly Gottlieb in the top 10 as to almost not even be worth talking about the two exceptions that we noted, to a case where they're a tied plurality with Williams. What explains to you, what explains the fact that, at least on Pinside, for the top of the top, it isn't all Gottlieb. It's actually, I can't say it's well representative because it's still just two manufacturers, but Williams all of a sudden is putting up a major showing, and I could maybe argue it's not even with their particularly best games. Of course, you could say that about the Gottlieb.
Well, I think with Pinside, it's about participation, and it's also that I think the crowd probably does skew a little bit younger, and in general, and then you also have not as many people participating, so it's just skewing the ratings all over the place.
Yeah,
So,
I think you're right about the demographics, and I also think Pinsides, with their current protocol of on EMs only requiring 5 ratings for something to become ranked, and in the top list, that's really low. I think that was the only way they could generate a list, is they had to just drop the demands. Because I mean, they made so many. Why not mandate the 15 votes that you mandate on all the solid state?
Yeah, the only reason would be because the demographics. There's not enough people rating EMs and having EMs for it to have ever happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I certainly don't want people to think that, I have anything against the Gottlieb at all. I don't. And I really am glad that there are so many people who collect them and preserve them. I mean, any people who want to save the EMs is great, Yeah.
And Ravens. Don't forget to save the Ravens. Sorry. He only cares about saving EMs.
Well,
the EM Gottliebs.
The EMs do have a specific knowledge set that's a little different for sure. What we should talk about is something I learned on my pinball tour when I was playing this home challenge. What I learned, though, is that I was having a lot more fun. This is about halfway through the tour. I realized that the multiplayer EMs were just a heck of a lot more fun to play with other people than the single players were. And when I first got into this hobby, I just went straight to IPDB and I looked at the top 10. I'm like, oh yeah, well, I got to get El Dorado because that's a top 10 game, and I got to get Atlantis because that's a top 10 game. I hadn't played these games before, but I was like, yeah, those are the ones to get, and as I started collecting and as I started kind of trying different games, I was like, okay, well, maybe I don't need those, but the difference between multiplayers and single players is it's all about the social aspect for me. Like when I'm playing pinball, I really like that, back and forth kind of elbow rubbing, kind of staying focused on the game aspect. And in the beginning, the collectors were saying, well, you don't want to get the multiplayers because lack of carryover features. They're not as complex. You're just playing a one ball game, and nobody wants that. It's just not as good of a game. But I think that's kind of a wash when you contrast it with the experience of playing pinball with another person. Throw shade on them and hope they drain so I can play. It's a back and forth, and ball times are really quick on the multiplayers. That's the good thing, is that you don't have to wait a long time. It's not like Lord of the Rings, you're waiting 15 minutes per ball. It's like even if you're playing against Keith Elwin, it's like he's gonna drain pretty soon here. So let's just see how long this is gonna take, and my turn's gonna be up. So And finally, there are some multiplayer EMs that do have carryover features. Solids and stripes tracks the number of balls that you have per player. It keeps track of that. 8-ball has a thing. It tracks how many players. A Surfside tracks the bonus as you play. So it's not. Some multiplayers do have carryover features. So I don't know. That's basically I'm divesting most of my single players at this point. And considering how much faster EMs play than solid states, I really think multiplayer EMs are kind of the ultimate now.
Well, I fully understand the social aspect because TPF, case in point, is a lot. Normally, me and Dennis will walk around TPF with whoever else we're there with, and we'll play multiplayer games. But occasionally, you wander apart and this and that, and you play some single player games, and there's just a different feel. I mean, when you're playing by yourself, okay, I played my 3 balls, I'm going to go try another game. It's completely different than when there's 2 or 3, 4 of you playing on a machine, and you're laughing and you're joking and this and that. Yeah. I mean, it's got a completely different feel. Because I know, like at TPF, a lot of times I'll go. I've had several times where I've split off to go, call the wife and see how the kids are doing this and that. When I come back, I'll play like 3 games on the way while I'm wandering around because the place is huge and it takes forever to find anybody. Mm-hmm. And it's just a completely different feel. And I think it's the same reason why, even though I'm not a very good player, I like going to tournaments, is because I like talking to my friends that I only ever see at a pinball tournament. I like having that interaction with people that's pretty much the only time you ever see them. But at the same time, it's the reason you actually go. Because I'm not that good, but I mean, it's still fun.
Right. It's the reason you go. It's like single player experiences now that you can have on like your Xbox or PC or whatever are just so vastly amazing that it's really even making a single player pinball game almost, it's kind of hard to compete, especially, you know what I mean, for your attention. It just is very, very difficult. But social, it's still vastly superior. You can't get that when you're, playing on your phone or whatever. Nobody cares. But
pinball, or even when you're playing multiplayer, I mean, on most video games, if you're playing multiplayer, you've got a headset on. You listen to 13-year-olds tell you about how they've had relations with your mother.
And they don't know what pinball is, so it remains pure. And
challenge. Well, that's my little sales pitch for multiplayers, but I think that the issue of you don't want multiplayers because there's no carryover features is vastly overstated.
I only ever had one multiplayer EM, and it was a wood rail, so I didn't care much for it. And the problem with the single players is no one wanted to. You couldn't play them with me, and so no one really wanted to play them. And then when I got, obviously in my case, they were solid states, but with multiplayer games, then you could do I mean, we'll go, I'll have 4 or 5 people over. I call it Tony Pinball, because he's the one who started, where he goes and it'd be like, oh, how many people do we have down here? 3. And he'll start 3 players on all the machines. And it'll be just like, we just go. So, and then you catch up with someone. You're like, come on and drain. I gotta go. I gotta play. It's my turn. It's like, why don't you accept the outline? Why can't you just accept your fate? Sort of thing. You do it like that. And then we see who won which ones and who won. You did them all at once. So it's kind of, this is a weird thing. But,
that's kind of cool.
But
you don't interesting. No waiting. You're just
right.
It's like, when somebody gets a really long ball on. So it's amazingly
But
fun.
that's less risky on EMs.
Yeah.
Because there ain't very many that give you long balls. I could go for a while on Skylab, but other than that, all my
Skylab does last a while. That one's like a long ball time.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just an amazingly fun thing. It's just, I mean, because you're literally jumping through 5 or 6 different games where you're playing, and it's not, we're going to play these 6. It's like, I just played Jurassic Park. Now I'm playing Star Trek. Now I'm playing Superman. Now I'm playing Firepower. Now I'm playing Sharkies. The thrill of it is because of the challenge, because you're changing games immediately to games that play completely differently.
What was your pick? If you want to give me just your best one, or if you want to do what Tony and I did, if you've heard the last episode, we gave our top 5s.
Oh, I've got that already down. I mean, as far as the EMs, I got them. I mean, I got them all the way down to, let's see here.
Oh, wow.
So,
folks can't, because this is an audio medium, they cannot see the complexity of the spreadsheet, but it has got, it almost looks like a heat map thing going on here.
Oh, yeah. This is this is all the games I've So if you want to really learn the EM map, I mean, I've only been in this now for 4 years. I'll have people come up to me, they're like, I have this game. It's in my grandmother's attic, and we were it's a pinball machine. It's got a picture of this woman in a blue hat. I go, it's Mayfair or whatever. Like, oh yeah, yeah, that is it. Yeah. I got the map figured out. Okay, so if you want to really know, it takes time to learn what EMs you really like. Like, I mean that sounds obvious, but you have to look at geometry and kind of think about what kind of a player you are if you really want to get your collection really tuned to you, and everybody's different. But because these EMs aren't, your arcade, and there's no arcades even anymore either, then how are you going to play these things? So you have to go to the Internet Pinball Database, IPDB.org, and create yourself a spreadsheet with just 5 columns. And the first column should be love it, own it, want to buy it, gotta have it. Second column is I like it. If I see one, maybe I'll buy it. Okay, but I'll definitely favor. Third column is play it. I don't need to own it, but I like to play it if I see it. Fourth column, like the artwork, something really cool visually about it, but I don't really even want to play it. I just appreciate it for kind of what it is aesthetically. And the fifth column is I don't even want to look at it. Like it's just your terrible trash column, or it's your column of I need to try it to figure it out. So those are your 5 columns, and then every row you have a year. So just spend a day, go to the IPDB, and just say, I'm going to look at everything that came out in 1967. Today I'll go over 67. You just go through all the games and kind of click on them, and kind of like, you can go to YouTube, and like sometimes they have videos, or fill in your little grid as you go. And then if you do the whole map, like I did this the first year, and then a year and a half later I did it again just to kind of check if my ratings held. And you go to these pinball shows, you play them, you cross them off your list. So I got the map. So my favorite list of favorites is a highly curated list, heavily filtered EMs. So, and it may be subject to change, but it's really hardly changing at all now. So this is just for me personally. And this show, I hope this show wasn't too like, here's what Nick likes. He doesn't like Gottlieb, so who cares? Like, I don't want it to be.
You beat around the bush so much until you got tired that they have to wait till the second half before they really hear the hate on Gottlieb.
Really?
It wasn't until we got to the ratings that you started this with specific games being named.
Right, like Sweethearts.
The hackles were raised. The fangs were bared. Yeah, Krinsky cowered in his grave.
Krinsky, that guy was just a design maniac.
And apparently that was so pervasive that even all the way up until premiere that they think that was just normal. Like, you just have a design cycle that tight.
It did involve that the guy might have been a little bit of crazy there to wake up, drink 3 or 4 cups of black coffee, design half of a play field, have breakfast, design the other half of the play field, start a new game. I mean...
Yeah, no one equals Krinsky and ever will in terms of his prolific output. Just unbelievable. He made some horrible games, and yet he made some terrific games. So he's all over the map. You know, you make that many, you're
bound to have something that falls short or hits it out of the park. And that's just amazing.
So do you have any Gottliebs in your top 5?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you're not a hater.
No, I'm not a hater. I don't hate Gottlieb.
You've just proven it. You don't need to explain.
Okay.
That proves it.
Okay.
Let's prove it.
Just overweighted is all, but that's okay.
So irrelevant. You've proven unbiased. This is how the internet works. So
all right,
that's all the proof you need.
So this is what I have, and this is from my collection. There are some that I'm looking for. So absolute favorite game, Freedom Prototype, easy.
Yeah, I actually know that was your favorite.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, best EM by far for me, and then Old Chicago. Mm-hmm. Then 2001, great flow, great drop targets. Then Skyrocket, not only does it look great, plays great. Then I've played around with the listings a little bit. I think maybe I'm kind of experimenting if Sinbad is going to hold up at the 5th position.
I've only played the solid state iteration of it. I actually like the layout of Sinbad. Some people, they made a lot of them. I don't know. Some people aren't fans of it.
I don't think, one of our members of the Dallas Makerspace, his name's Chuck, and he has rebuilt using the meticulous method that I kind of teach over there. He's completely rebuilt his Sinbad, and it just plays amazingly well. And he's also replaced that crappy plastic spinner with a metal spinner.
Right.
So it'll thwack, and it really has the speed, and it just is a lot of fun. It's really good layout. And I have a solid state Sinbad too. The transition period, the System 1s, they made some EMs in that period. Gottlieb did as well. I like the solid states better. I like Sinbad solid state over the EM, and I like the Joker Poker solid state over the EM because the drops don't reset on either one of them. And then what are you going to do? Nothing to shoot at. But except for Cleopatra, I'll take the EM there because it's the exact same game either way. So, but Sinbad's. I'm playing with that at number 5. We'll see. Let's see. Next is a game called Expo, Norm Clark game. And what's fascinating about Expo is I just completely threw it away when I looked at it at IPDB because it looks like this big empty field of red and these huge outlanes. And there's just like 5 pops and like, what are you shooting at? This just looks worthless. But what's so neat about it is that the 5 lanes that you go through at the top are like these power-ups. So each lane gives you a different power-up. Like one of them will make a stop, like a post raises up between the flippers.
Okay.
The thick post, it blocks the ball. So one of them is that. One of them raises a mini post on the left out lane. One of them opens a gate that redirects the ball back into play. One of them
post saves on this. Interesting.
Yeah, one of them opens a gate back to the shooter lane. So if you get all your power ups, then you can focus on. You have to light up these 1 through 12. And it's not for specials, it's actually for points. You see, that's what's so cool about it. You light up 1 through 12, and then the spinner spins on the back box, and you get 500 points if it hits that magic number versus one that's unlit. So anyway, the point is, you as playing it, you turn the tables on the game itself. And that's a Norm Clark, again, one of his crazy ideas, but he's managed to, as you play the game, it somehow makes it easier the longer you play. So anyway, just really cool game and a multiplayer. So there you go. Out of Sight is next. That would be number 6. Or no, that's 7. 5, 6, 7. Then Rancho, Williams Rancho.
Okay. Yeah.
You played that one? Seen that one? Okay. Then Aztec. Then I'm gonna modify it because it's a little too easy to abuse the spinner. So I'm going to modify it so that you have to go into the little grotto after you get your first go through on the lane, light the spinner. But after you use it, you have to go through the grotto to light it. Okay. So it forces you to play a little more of the game. Right. So I'm going to work on that a little bit. In Spanish Eyes. Yes. The first 3-inch middle pop game by Norm Clark. And again, that was his castle layout, as I call it. It's a beautiful, fantastic movement. Great game. There's
been one for sale in the area here for quite a while. I haven't liked the price on it. But
what's he asking? I
think he's now down to $9.75.
Oh, unless it's perfect, then.
It's Craigslist. It ain't perfect.
Yeah. I mean, if it's been rebuilt.
He started it at, I think, $1,200. I was like, I'm sorry. They made a lot of them.
They did make a lot of them. It's not a rare game. And some people really hate the artwork, but.
It's Cubist. Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on your view on. Is it Picasso? Is he the Cubist?
Yeah.
Well, you see how expertly trained I am in art.
Yeah.
I read one book once, and I forgot it.
It just makes me happy. It just makes me feel like I'm in the 70s at some old, grocery store with, crazy colors. And, I don't know. It's just something about it.
I would like a modern game to reincorporate the middle pop. I'd like to see the
Yes. Well, there's Miss Universe or Miss Adventure. Miss Adventure. It's the guy that did... the sort of steampunk royale game.
I've heard of Miss Adventure. I've heard the name. I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, it's a middle pop game that also has an upper play field, and he's recreated Norm Clark's kind of that lower layout. And he didn't have that one at the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show, but he had some of his other games there. But that designer, I forget his name, pardon me, I did meet you at the show, but
Okay.
That's modern world. Let's see, Grand Prix. Be next.
I really like
this year's.
Everybody likes Grand Prix. Yeah, and I do too, but when you put it up against some of these others,
there's really only there's not a lot to do on it.
I mean, it's Liberty,
satisfying, right? Yeah, but it's satisfying to shoot, and I think it's fun in multiplayer content.
Yeah, way fun. Yeah, very, very fun, very fast, very cool.
And the one we played was that really nice one.
Oh yeah, of course. Nick probably told him clear this.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Oh, it won. It won best 70s. Yeah. But then he did it. He took that was the HSA playfield restoration, and they did the matte style because you notice the playfield wasn't glossy. It had that kind of knockdown level. Now, I actually prefer the glossy look because I think it gives your light bulbs kind of more specular highlights, and it just looks more dazzling. You know what I mean? But some people, if you want the original kind of, that's an option, is the little matte look, But okay, but it's a beautiful game. Yeah, absolutely wonderful game. Deserve to win. Then Bow and Arrow, and that's really, I think it's Kimek's first game, isn't it? Yeah, it is, and that's the start of the Big Bally back glasses. You can see that's really Bow and Arrow is the game where they're really starting to gear up for the big fight that kicked off with Wizard. Yeah. Then Cleopatra, old Cleo. I got the EM Cleo.
Played that a few times.
Yeah, I did. That was at one of the tournaments.
Yeah,
I seem to recall.
Yeah, they did have it in the bank in 2016 TPF, I think
you're right.
Yeah.
At least until it broke.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was Brian's. It was his EM. Yep. And then Sheba, which is the 2-player version of Campus Queen, which is a game that
Campus Queen.
Tony would like to have a Campus Queen. Yep.
That's Dennis for Christmas after I did the thing. He got me a little magnet made to look like the Campus Queen black back glass on my refrigerator. Because I mean I've told the story a bunch of times, but that's the game where I hated it and I hated it and I hated it, and by the end of the weekend at TPF, it's like I kind of want to own this game.
Yeah.
That game is on my Grail list. That's the game that I would really like to have.
Now, if you like that one, and this one's on my want list as well, you need to look for one called Big Day. It's kind of a Mardi Gras theme. It's a Bally. It's a similar era, and it's a similar hit the mushroom bumpers to open gates, but it has a little bit of a different flow to it. But it's similar to that Campus Queen kind of design.
And that's Big Day.
Big Day. That one's not very common, but okay. So we're almost done. Then Flipper Fair. I just like or Subway, if you will. I like that layout for just being an add-a-ball kind of old-fashioned and yet still nail-biting kind of fun. And then Snow Derby, the one that I as a TPF was very well. So all those are very strong, I think, games. Kind of battle-tested in terms of their fun. And then the ones I'm looking for, if you have any out there, I'll just name real quick.
You're doing a little. There's other podcasts do this. We do not. But as a guest,
all right.
You may.
Okay. Well, these are also good games, so anyone could look for these. But this is a one-player making an exception for it. It's a Zaccaria Aerobatics.
Okay.
Yep. Have you played Aerobatics?
I played it virtually.
It's really great gameplay. I think the strongest of the Zaccaria EMs, I think. Really, really great. And then, of course, I have a Queen's Castle, Zaccaria, which I can't rate it because I haven't played it yet. Of course, Big Day, looking for that. I like to get an EM version of Hot Tip. It's that Rancho Aztec kind of, that late layout that they had. Joker Poker, Solid State, like to get that. Pioneer, good old Pioneer, I think it's great. Yeah. For 2-player or 4 players, Spirit 76. There's one that Bally made called Seesaw. And it's this funny theme of this, I guess it's this, like, women can't drive is kind of the theme of this game. And it's this lady who's, like, looking backwards at this car that's gone through a restaurant, people running out of the way and help, anyway. But that's just a Bally game. Let's see.
It's like Bally and the offensive themes.
Yeah.
That could be an episode we do at some point.
Don't do that. Yeah, it's kind of a funny thing. Let's see. Solids and Stripes. There's a Norm Clark game. I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but the lower half of the playfield is just this empty pool table with these 6 kick-out holes. Absolutely abysmal 1-player game and fantastic 2-player game. Because there's no point in playing by yourself. It's like, I don't know if you played Surfside, Gottlieb Surfside.
I don't, if I did, I don't remember.
I think that's probably the best multiplayer Gottlieb ever made, and but you have to play it with somebody else because you can steal the bonus from the other person, and it's got this competitive thing. But anyway, good game. Good. Let's see. Finally, Space Odyssey and Wizard. Those are the last 2 I really am looking for. So yeah, a lot of these are pretty well known.
Yeah,
but not many Gottliebs. I'd say looks like about 6 maybe Gottliebs. They're pretty well distributed.
Yeah, that's
6,
not
6,
a
7
bad sample from your.
Yeah, it's about even for each manufacturer. 6, 6, 7.
Very eclectic of you.
Yes, so I'd like to mix it up. And then, of course, one issue of contention. Let's talk about preserving EMs real quick. To EM or to LED or not to LED? That is the question. Some people just
say you shouldn't ever, never, ever. That it always looks wrong.
That's right. I published an article on Pinside years ago about doing this thing called Stealth LED, and it's a recipe that involves mostly these Comet warm white frosted LEDs that you put them in the right place. You don't put them everywhere. You just put them under the inserts and in the back glass mostly. And you don't put them under plastics or anywhere your eye can directly see a filament. And what that does is, because you see bulbs, so you leave the bulbs where your eyes see the filaments, and the LEDs fill in the inserts in the back glass. So it's kind of this best of both. It's like, well, it looks brighter. I can see more of the artwork, but then again, it looks. Is there LEDs in this? I guess, yeah, that's the point, is that you don't want to see the LEDs, you want to see the game.
And, I mean, I could be completely wrong on this, but it seems to me that a lot of, like, the older back glasses, they get a lot of heat damage from the lighting in the thing, and I would think that the lower temps that LEDs are putting on are going to preserve your back glasses better, I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean,
it just seems to make sense, because it looks like almost everyone I've seen, most of the chipping and some of the worst stuff is always right where the light bulbs are, where that paint's always being heated and then cooled when the machine's off, and then heated and then cooled. Because incandescents get hot. I mean, they can get real hot. So it just makes sense.
I guess the other thing that would come to my mind on a restoration would be your propensity for clear coating.
Yes, that's a must. No. EM, a clear-coated EM is a luxurious, dazzling, wonderful, beautiful, fantastically playing game that transforms it. Like, I mean, it's to me, no one really, very few people have played a brand new EM who can remember, but when they came off the factory floor, they were like flat and fast and glossy, and I don't wax my clear-coated playfields. I just use Novus 2 to clean them occasionally, but you don't really need to wax them. When I first got my first EM and the balls were sticking in the inserts because they were cupped too much, I was like, well, I really hate that. So I tried, I popped them out and sanded them flat and re-decaled them and, spot cleared them. And then it was like, yeah, that's cool. But then the edges still aren't quite perfect, and it's just, and so why don't I just have it airbrushed and just clear the whole thing and just see how that turns out? It was really more of an experiment. I think people may be reluctant to do it because they got one off Craigslist for $300 and it looks, it works and it plays. And it's like, why should I spend $600 and, a whole weekend to strip it and do it? And if it's only going to be worth it, I'm like, oh, that's not the point. It's that if you take an EM all the way to fully restored, beautiful, or even better than new restoration clear coats, and if it was a beat up game, I mean, Snow Derby was in pretty bad shape when I got it, and it won because of all the work we did. It was repainted, it was cleared, it was stealthed, it was da. And so you can turn it into this almost like a modern game. And I know all of them, you don't have to do that to all of them. We need museums. We need pristine originals. If games are in really good original shape, you don't really need to do that. But I like taking the ugly ducklings and turning them into these kind of superstars. Maybe they've been Hollywoodized. Maybe a little bit of plastic surgery I'm doing on them. That's the equivalent
of a little
nip
here, a little tuck there.
Yeah, but gosh, they really they play great and they look great, and I'm really kind of addicted to that look. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I like him, and I can see, especially if it's if you're just a collector or somebody who only has a couple pins, but you've got one you really love, even if it's just one, I can see doing it. When it's like, I really, really love this game. I'm going to go all out on this game. I'm going to fix this game. I want it to be special because this is my one true most important game. This is the one that's going to live in my collection no matter what. So even as just a small-time collector or somebody with just a few pens, I could see doing it on something really special like that.
And what you were talking about, like people who play modern games, they're used to seeing a little dazzle, a little glitz, So I do want my games to be relevant to modern players, and a sparkling, tuned up, dialed in kind of EM does get played more. Just does.
So you're saying they shouldn't have done the matte finish on that Grand Prix?
Oh no,
and they shouldn't have won after all. Huge mistake. Huge.
I am not saying that. I put lots of games on that Grand Prix, and that was just fantastic. He had the door chromed. You noticed that? So he had the perfect back glass. So
it was so
he did some things to that too. It was yeah.
Okay, you let him know he wants to sell it. I got $500.
$500. Actually, a fully restored EM, if it's had the whole works treatment, is usually, if it comes out of my stable, it's minimum $3,500, and that's not even a like I'm making money thing. That's if I have time to do it because you're a friend kind of thing, and because it takes so much time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, it really winds up being not worth my time to do them. As beautiful as they are, and I'd love to do it. I'd love to have a crew and just crank them out. But if it were a business, they'd have to be like 6, probably 5,000, 6,000.
Yeah, price ranges.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that's his business, But that's not my business. I just want to have a little barcade and a little place where I can show and share my games and just do little tournaments and have people enjoy them. That's really my goal. It's just and teach the skills. I want people to know how to preserve these things. So anyway, I don't really have anything else except that I am going to make a kind of announcement about my plans. I do have a plan in place.
Always good to have a plan.
Yes, this traveling kind of teaching and fixing thing that I do is going to get dialed down, and because there's something I'm going to be doing soon. It'll be after TPF, and I'll have a little announcement. I think it'll be interesting. That's all I can say. But,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
a tease, but we'll accept it.
It's only a few more months to go.
That's right.
It'll be here before you know it. So quick. I'm really past this. Well, do you guys have not necessarily top 5, but what EMs in your mind? I know you haven't played everything, but that really pop out.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we've touched on several of them already. Yeah. Freedom Prototype was a major standout for me. I haven't had a chance to try Spanish Eyes, but because of Scoreboard, I have a fondness for what middle pops I have played, even when they're not the best players overall. I think that element's really good, so I've always been attracted to that. I liked the Grand Prix as well that we had mentioned beforehand. Mayfair, actually.
I love Mayfair.
Yeah, it's good. I like that one.
I like the thing with the where you've got the rotating target and then you've got the kickouts to attack it.
That was one of the top ones on my list I was thinking of was Mayfair.
Yeah,
so I played a lot of Mayfair up at Pinnapalooza.
And I like 4 million BC, or is it 40 million BC?
Yeah, 4 million BC.
I forget the number. How much does he like it? You can't even remember the name. 4 million BC. I really like it a lot. I like the skill shot that they've got going for it. I think the way the multi-ball works is relatively clever. Even though it's a short flipper game, I think it overall it feels like I'm being productive on it. So those would be the ones that I would name.
Okay. Tony, you got
of course, most of those would be on my list also. In addition to that, I know with me, part of it, a lot of it's the aesthetic. I know Dennis is less aesthetic or oriented than I am. I like Knight Rider. I mean,
Knight Rider's fun.
I like the aesthetic. I like the semi truck thing going on. I don't know. I just like Knight Rider. It's fun. It's got an aesthetic I like. Trying to remember the name of it.
Fireball.
No. Surf's Up?
Oh, now Surf Champ.
Surf Champ.
Yeah, we actually had that on location for a while. I should have named Surf Champ as well.
Yeah,
everyone loves Surf Champ.
Yeah, Surf Champ, man. I like Surf Champ. That
maybe
is...
Nick.
Who cares what I think?
More Gottlieb hate.
Yeah, the problem is the spinner doesn't go anywhere. It goes right into the pop bumper. So it's like, okay. And this rollovers, you got to roll, and the rollover-y thing is
okay. Well, regarding the spinner, I want to give you a piece of advice. It's going to be very new to you. Not every game is going to give you a spinner to rip. You can just rip at will.
But it just
it is fun. It is
wise man.
You can rip it. It just doesn't go anywhere after that. Just sort of thump.
It punishes you. There's a punishment. It's like, here's this juicy spinner. Now suffer.
Well, then why? Then instead of Surf Champ, there should be like the guy in the back glass is eaten by a shark. You know, like that's the sad.
I'm surprised there's not a.
It's the sequel, Surf Chump. But.
Yeah.
I'm surprised there's not just a chum themed pinball machine. There's just bloody water and arms and shark fins and stuff.
Feed right into all those people who want Jaws so bad.
Jellyfish attack. Whatever.
Jellyfish. That's the knockoff. It's the same layout, but a different.
Yeah, Chicago coin
art.
jellyfish.
Yeah.
They did that. Chicago coin.
Shoot for the urine. Yeah, take this thing away. For those that don't know, it's relevant.
That's relevant.
It is.
You gotta pee on my foot, man. You gotta pee on my foot.
But not with Man of War.
See, that would be one of those quaint, Chicago coin titles, like warm swimming pool. You just have everybody looking at each other suspiciously. Anyway.
Well, we've reached our limit easily here, so I'm going to go ahead and cut us off at this point. Reminder, you can reach out to the podcast, facebook.com/Eclectic Gamers Podcast, or email to us, eclecticgamerspodcast@gmail.com.
We're available at eclectic_gamers on both Twitter and Instagram.
And thank you very much, Nick, for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure. Always fun hanging out with you guys.
And until just under 2 weeks, we will be back at that time. And so, goodbye.
Have fun.